Podcasters tend to take a monolithic view of podcast listening apps, as evident by wherever you get your podcasts. But human behavior is more complicated than that, and it's up to us to adapt. Hello and welcome to another Podcast Pontifications with me, Evo Terra. Most podcasters, at least those of us who wish our shows to grow, we want three things, and we want them in this order. First, we want someone to subscribe to our show so that, number two, they can download our episodes, and then, number three, listen to what we have to say. We really don't care where that first part happens, the subscribing part begins, because we know there are myriad apps out there people can and do choose to subscribe to podcasts on. We don't really care so long as it happens. Now, if we look at some fascinating reports, which I will have a link to Tom Webster's wonderful breakdown of what it means in the episode details. If we take a look, we will see that when we ask the public who listen to podcasts, what do you listen to podcasts on? They give us the following answers: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. And those numbers are fairly even between those. There's a little pluses and minuses there, but by and large, those are the three apps people who listen to podcasts say they use to listen to podcasts. But it's already off the rails for any of you who have ever looked in your podcast listening stats. Because we know that ain't true. Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. When we look into our stats, we will almost always see Apple Podcasts right there on top. So that part we agree with. But Spotify at an equal level? That's insane. And YouTube, come on. These don't work at all. Well, I posit to you that perhaps they do. Well, first, we have a math problem. It's a math problem because the signals we are using to count on the back end, us podcasters who can see what's actually coming in and hitting our stuff, the way that those numbers are counted differently. It's a different process. Let me tell you what I mean, very briefly. Apple Podcast auto downloads, by the way, so does Overcast, your episodes of your show. So a download is just simply that. It's a download, it's not a listen. Spotify doesn't download at all. Really. It instead streams, okay, fine, pedants, progressively downloads, whatever. And they may or may not pass back the data properly to your podcast hosting app if it's not been set up properly, because they do cache the information and stream from there. And YouTube will never show up on your podcast stats because it's not hitting an audio file. You have to create a video file and upload it, and then you're stuck with YouTube's stats. So yeah, math's a problem, but I don't think math is the big problem here. The big problem here, I see it, is that we are treating all three of those listening apps exactly the same, instead of modifying the content we push out to those apps to make it specific for that platform. Let's take YouTube. YouTube is a perennial topic. It comes up all the time. We see it in the numbers. None of us believe it. But let's suspend our disbelief for a moment and do a breakdown of YouTube. What works on YouTube? Well, we know what works on YouTube are the things we see in our social media feeds all the time, and that is clips and highlights. That's what gets shared. Clips and highlights. Not an entire movie, television show, 45-minute long rant. But most of us podcasters, including myself here, when we use YouTube, we just dump out our entire episode. Try to make YouTube just one more distribution channel for us like we have everywhere else. But it's not. It's uniquely not, and we know it's not. It's not a surprise to us. It's not. Apple Podcasts, I just talked about how it auto-downloads. And there's a huge disconnect for any of you who've ever looked at Apple Podcasts back end, Apple Podcasts Connect, if you can log in. If you've ever looked, you've noticed a big disconnect between the number of listeners it shows and the number of downloads. Now, some have argued, as I have argued, that that may or may not be real. It's possible it's a data problem, or it's also maybe an echo of a once dominant platform now in decline. But away from Apple Podcasts, which is the only podcast-specific app that we have, and let's think of Spotify for a second. Now, Spotify, what is it mostly? It's a music-focused app that now has podcasts in it. But it's still music-heavy. The people who use Spotify are heavy music users. So maybe we podcasters should experiment with things that work in music, like alternate cuts, radio edits, live versions, re-releases, remasters, the things that are endemic to the music industry. We could do that on that platform. Because if these platforms really are where our potential audience are, and every year they tell us the same thing, people, they tell us that's where they really are, doesn't it make sense that we should try and meet them where they are? How would you change your publishing approach if instead of thinking about your audience, your overall audience, you thought of your Apple Podcasts audience different from your Spotify audience, which is distinctly different, once again, from your YouTube audience? I'll leave you with that pondering moment and say that this is the last week before I go on break. Season 3 will be over on Thursday. And then later on this week, by the way, just so you know, Season 4 is coming back. But later on this week, a special newsletter-only announcement will be going out to all PPIYI, that's Podcast Pontification in Your Inbox subscribers, which is free to subscribe. Go to Podcast Pontification, hit the big subscribe button, and enter your email, and you will be on the PPIYI list, and you'll find out what's happening with Season 4, which I've been teasing, and I'm going to continue to tease because I want you to subscribe to that newsletter. Yeah, you should. And if you loved this idea, this thought, make you wonder how you're going to shift your approach, should you shift your approach, thinking about these individual publishing destinations as just that, different places to publish different content, not just a place to drop the same thing. If that sparks an interest in you, whether you love it or hate it, please consider going to buymeacoffee.com/evoterra and doing just that, buying me a coffee. That's it. I shall be back tomorrow with yet another podcast, Pontifications. Cheers.